Hey, my name is Cordell, aka Hot Cocoa, and today we're going to talk about how to make sure you never run out of ideas. Let's get into it. So, have you ever struggled to actually find an idea that you want to execute? Whether you're an individual or organization or a team, this is something that's always going to be relevant to you in any kind of creative work. You have to have an idea in order to creatively execute an idea. A lot of people think these ideas come from nowhere or they come from some special place that only certain people get. But there's actually a process that you can go through to reliably make sure that you or your team actually get good ideas on a regular basis. I'm a creativity coach as well as a musician and sound designer, so all of my work requires tons of ideas. And not only that, but I've studied the psychology of how the creative process unfolds, and I found a bunch of really helpful ways to make sure that you always get ideas coming. Whether they're good or not is another question, but you'll always be able to make sure that an idea will appear regularly. And that's what I'm going to break down today. So the first thing you need to do to make sure that you're always having ideas consistently is to go through what's known as a preparation phase. This is just a part of the creative process in which you're exposing yourself to new ideas. You have to have new experiences, meet new people, read new things, go to new places. And the more you have these new experiences, the more your brain has raw material that you can use to process and then kind of come up with ideas from there. These new experiences have to be really varied, right? That's the whole point of new. They can't just be the same things that you've done over and over again. When you pair these new experiences with an interesting question you're trying to solve, whether that's something you're trying to express creatively or something your team has been set on solving together, what will happen is your brain will categorize all of these new experiences on its own in your subconscious mind. This process happens in a phase of the creative process we call the incubation phase. In the incubation phase, this is happening under the surface, outside of your conscious mind. Your brain is creating connections between all of these new experiences and all the old experiences that you've had before them. When you start to put all of these experiences together and this new information will simmer deep under the surface, but you have to give your brain enough free space in order to let this simmering happen. This is why things like going for a walk or taking a shower or playing a small game with your friends to kind of blow off steam. I know here in Berlin, ping pong is a really big thing, table tennis. These kind of things engage your mind enough so that you're somewhat focused, but it's not so complicated and so energy intensive that all of your faculties are put on these, right? When you're just washing the dishes or tidying up your house, your mind has enough energy to kind of process things in the background. And when it does this, eventually an idea will just bubble up. They don't come out of nowhere. They come from these past experiences and from this downtime. When you have enough of those two ingredients, they will always lead to some idea coming up. Now, these ideas, when they come up, they're fragile. So you need to make sure that you write them down or tell somebody about them or just execute the idea right away. I've heard stories of people just leaving dinner parties to go write songs, or in the middle of a conversation, they'll just stop and start writing something that's really important to them. When you do this, you're prioritizing the idea that you're having. Prioritizing the idea is really important because it helps train your mind to allow these ideas to come. Another important way to make sure you're constantly generating new ideas is to set what are known as process goals. These process goals are distinct from an outcome goal. So a lot of people will focus on what am I going to make? What is the solution going to be? How are we going to finish this, whatever you're working on? But a process goal doesn't prioritize the outcome. Instead, it prioritizes how you're engaging with your medium or with your problem that you're solving. So for example, for me, when I'm doing sound design, instead of saying, I need this particular sound, how am I going to make this particular sound? That's an outcome goal. Instead, often what I'll do is, I want to play with this particular technique. That's a process that I can either engage in or I can't. It's hard to fail a process goal. So for me, for example, I've been playing with FM synthesis. It's a type of frequency modulation. I won't go into it too much here, but basically I'm just shoving certain sounds into other sounds. The outcome, I don't really know what's going to happen, but I'm coming up with ideas as I'm engaging in the process. And this is because ideas will naturally arise as I play with a certain technique or engage with a certain tool. So you can do this with yourself or with a team or organization if you have something that you're working on. If you don't have any exact ideas to execute, pick something that you can all engage in process-wise, something that you can all play with or toy around with that will lead to certain ideas, rather than waiting for an idea to appear before you start engaging. Let me think of some more examples. If you're working on solving some type of coding bug, what you can do is play around with certain techniques adjacent to that bug, right? Code some similar things as you're coming up with ideas for how to solve that particular problem. If you are designing a new product, what you can do is, instead of coming up with a perfect idea for a product and then executing towards that outcome, you can just play with a particular medium like clay or design within certain colors and just kind of explore and play around, right? Engage in the process in ways that are fun, and ideas will naturally just appear. When these ideas actually happen, you can decide whether you want to keep them or not. And this is a really great way to make sure ideas are consistently coming, especially if you pair this with a preparation phase and an incubation phase like we talked about before. And if you're really trying to get some ideas, you can always do a good old-fashioned brainstorm. Yeah, so a brainstorm is really helpful. A lot of people think a brainstorm is just shooting out tons of ideas, but there's actually some scientifically appropriate ways to brainstorm. There are 4 things to keep in mind if you want your brainstorm session to be really effective. Again, this can be by yourself or with a team or organization. 1 is to get quantity over quality. This sounds kind of strange at first, but really in a brainstorm, you're just trying to get as many ideas as possible. And what research in creativity psychology has found is the more ideas you come up with, the more unique or novel or interesting they become. So your first few ideas for anything are always going to be the most obvious. They're the most readily available. They're on the tip of your fingertips, right? They're right on the front of your mind. But if you come up with quantity over quality, there's a rule called the third. So if you come up with 50 ideas, the last third of those 50 ideas are going to be way more interesting and unique and creative than the first third. So in any brainstorm session, prioritize quantity over quality. Just get them out. But the thing is, when you're coming up with lots of ideas, you need to make sure you don't judge these ideas. This is for yourself, like don't judge your own ideas, and also don't judge the ideas of other people in the brainstorm. Because what often happens is someone will suggest something like, okay, what if we did this particular thing? What if we gave everyone in the whole company a raise of $100,000? That's just one idea out of many, right? If you're going for quantity. But if someone stops you or you stop yourself, like, actually, we don't have the funds for that this year. Even if your criticism or judgment is true, what it's doing is it's shutting down that flow of ideas. It's really hard for most people to share more ideas when their suggestions have been shut down or judged or pushed away. So you can judge them later. They can be judged. You can have feedback. This just needs to be done when the brainstorm is over. So get as many ideas as you can out. Don't judge any of those ideas. And if you're not judging, it's going to make it much easier to do this third strategy for a good brainstorm, which is to have wild, outlandish, cartoonish, unrealistic ideas. Just let them come out. It doesn't really matter whether they're possible or not. Ideally, at the end of this whole process, you want something that's possible enough to execute. But what's most important is you're letting your mind wander. So that when you suggest unrealistic or outlandish ideas, sometimes they'll unlock different ways of thinking or different possibilities that will then lead to genuinely possible ideas that you never would have gotten to if you hadn't let yourself explore. So like, what if we decided to build this product on the moon? That's probably not going to happen, but that might lead you to think that, yeah, maybe we just need less gravitational pull. Maybe that means we can do it underwater, which is more possible. And now you're working on an underwater design that you might not have gotten to if you rejected this moon idea or never had it. So yeah, third thing is to make sure that you're letting yourself explore wild and wacky ideas. And the final really helpful guideline for making sure your brainstorms are effective is to build on your ideas by combining them. So if someone suggests something with a boat, someone else suggests something to do with waffles, you can combine the two for a waffle boat. Is that a boat made of waffles or a boat that's shaped like a waffle? Who knows? That's kind of where the brainstorm can go. But when you do that, you naturally build upon these ideas that again lead to suggestions that you never would have come to otherwise. And when all of these are paired together, right, no one's judging anyone, everyone's just shooting out as many ideas as they can. They're getting combined together, and all of them are just super interesting and unrealistic sometimes, but just fascinating and unhinged. You end up with a ton of ideas. And that's what we're talking about today. How do we just get more ideas, right? Especially if you went through the preparation phase, you let some of those new experiences incubate, you started to engage in the process a little bit, and then start brainstorming tons of ideas. This is something you can do every single day. If you're doing these things, you physically, psychologically cannot run out of ideas. They're just going to keep on coming and coming and coming. Then your problem will become how to pick the right ideas, how to implement those ideas, how to evaluate them, and that's something I can talk about in another video. But if this video gave you any new ideas, let me know in the comments below. And if you want some help generating more ideas for yourself or some more one-on-one experience with how to put this in action for you or your team, you can visit upwardacts.com, where I love to connect with people on how to do this stuff in real life. There's also tons of resources there, like articles and concept maps and podcasts and e-courses and all kinds of things related to helping you create in ways that are effective and fun. So thanks for watching. Hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.